Mr. Witness, we start today with your testimony, but before obviously giving the floor to the parties for their questions and your answers, we have to do some preliminary things. First of it is your complete identification, and to this effect I ask you to give us your complete name, date, and place of birth.
I am Mr. Yaké Evariste, born on the 25th of the 10th month, 1968, in Mang, Côte d'Ivoire.
And where is this place? In the north, south, east, west?
It is in the west of Côte d'Ivoire, in the Tongpé region.
And what is your nationality? Are you Ivorian citizen?
Oui.
Yes, I am an Ivorian citizen.
Can you tell us what you are doing? What's your occupation now and at the time of the crisis, say end 2010, beginning 2011?
Aujourd'hui,
currently, I am a regional councillor in Tongpé. During the crisis, I was in the cabinet of Franck Guei, who was an advisor of the president in charge of rural health, and I was a chargé d'études in his cabinet.
Thank you. So now I give you some information. The first one is, as you might have learned, that we will all here call you Mr. Witness. This is normal practice. We will not call you by name, but by the appellative Mr. Witness. Then, second is the possibility of self-incrimination, or the issue of self-incrimination. The court has assigned you a lawyer, which is Mr. Wagemakers, sitting beside you, to provide you with all necessary legal advice about possible self-incrimination. This because the prosecutor has indicated to the chamber that assurances under what we call Rule 74 are appropriate in your case. So if anything, if any problem, if any doubt arises, or you think you have a problem or a doubt, you can obviously speak and confer with Mr. Wagemakers. In any case, the chamber gives you the assurance pursuant to Rule 74(3) of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence that your testimony will not be used either directly or indirectly against you in any subsequent proceedings before this court, except possible proceedings under Article 70 and 71, which are the offenses against the court in case you do not say the truth. So, just to repeat myself, if at any time a question is asked to you that could lead to your self-incrimination, we will hear your answer in private session. Private session means that only here in this courtroom we know about it, or we hear you. And in any case, yourself are obviously responsible to ask through your lawyer, through Mr. Wagemaker's private session, if you think you need them. But in any case, the other parties, the questioning parties, are responsible for requesting themselves private session prior to asking questions which could lead to your self-incrimination. And obviously also duty counsel can intervene if he deems it appropriate. Have you understood this?
Oui, Monsieur le
Yes, Mr. President.
Now, another thing I want to tell you, another information I want to give you, is the one related to the interpretation. So I'm speaking slowly, not because I cannot speak faster, but because we have to take care of the interpreters and the court reporters. They have to interpret properly and completely what we all are saying in here and write it down in real time. And therefore, it is needed that we speak slowly, and even more, that after a question is posed to you, you respond, you wait a couple of seconds before responding. You have to wait until the question is completely translated before responding. This makes it a bit slower, the whole proceedings, but we need this to have a correct translation, interpretation. This is even more important when it comes to some in here which will question you in your own language, in French. It's even more important to be aware that you have to slow down. So after this preliminary information, we come closer to the testimony itself. And you are obviously aware that this chamber has been established to try the case of the prosecutor versus Mr. Gbagbo and Mr. Plegoudet. Your role as a witness is to assist us, to assist the chamber, and to assist all of us in the finding of, in the search of the truth. And then, therefore, you will be asked questions by the parties, meaning by the office of the prosecutor, by the defense for Mr. Gbagbo, and then the defense for Mr. Plegoudet, and maybe also by the judges. And if at any point you have some concerns, you would like a break, you're tired, or whatever, you have any needs, you just address me and we will try to solve the problems. But what you have to do is to answer the questions and to answer them truthfully. You are not here to take part in this trial, but just to inform, from your point of view, in truthful manner, us on following the questions you are asked. So, in order for you to, before we start, you have to make a solemn undertaking to the fact that you will tell the truth, and therefore I ask you to read the formula you have in front of you.
Engagement solennel.
Solemn undertaking. I solemnly declare that I shall speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Now, before giving the floor now to the Office of the Prosecutor for its questioning, I have to inform you that giving false testimony is an offense against the court, and as such, punishable. Okay. I see that you have understood. I see it from your expression. And so I think you're ready to start the questioning and the answering. Okay. Therefore, I give the floor to the Office of the Prosecutor. Mr. Garcia.
Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors. Bonjour, Monsieur le Témoin.
Mr. Garcia, good morning, Mr. Witness. Answer, good morning. Question, can you hear me well? Answer, yes. Question, just to remind you that I will begin the examination in chief now. And when I ask you a question, please remember what the chamber has told you, to pause for 5 seconds before answering. But take your time, because we all tend to want to answer quickly. Have you understood? Answer, yes. Question, Mr. Witness, we met briefly last week. I am a trial attorney at the OTP, and I'm going to ask you questions. And I would simply like to tell you that if you do not understand any of my questions for any reason at all, please do not hesitate to interrupt me, and I will be able to rephrase and clarify. Is that okay? Answer, yes.
Your Honors was asking the witness questions, and that's at page 2, lines 20 to 23. There is a part of the testimony of the witness missing regarding, it's in the French transcript actually, regarding his employment in 2010, 2011. I think there has been a note sent in that regard. Just
well, otherwise you ask him.
Yes, that's
so
exactly.
yeah.
So I'm going to go on that point, just so that be clear. Alors, Monsieur le Témoin, la chambre.
Question, Mr. Witness. The chamber asked you questions about your current occupation, and I would like to clarify everything, because there are things lacking. Are you in the employment of a political party? Answer, yes, I am in a political party, and I am a member of the cabinet of the Secretary General of the RDR, my party. Question, are you employed under someone in particular? Answer, the Secretary General of the RDR it is a party, not someone in particular. He's the boss of the party, and I'm a member of that party where I militate. I am in charge of the new recruits, new members into the party. Question.
To slow down with your the speed, and then the 2-3 seconds, 5 seconds, it's a little bit long, but a couple of seconds I would really urge you also to observe them. Thank you.
I'm well advised. Thank you, Your Honor, for the reminder.
I'm just anticipating the protests of the of the interpreters.
Alors, Monsieur le témoin.
Question, Mr. Witness. Do you work for someone in particular? And please pause for 5 seconds rather, before you answer. Answer. I work for the party, and I'm in the cabinet of Minister Amadou Soumaoro. Question, just to be clear, do you also work with Mr. Joel Ngesan? Answer, yes. Mr. Joel Ngesan has a consulting firm, and from time to time I work with him to identify clients.
Alors, vous dites que vous êtes chargé.
Question, you say that you are in charge of new recruits. What specifically do you do? Briefly. Answer. Talking about new members, we have to receive individuals who want to start militating within the RDR, and I am a member of the RDR, and I am responsible for receiving these people, explain to them how we stay together, and to tell them that they have made a good choice. Question. Thank you for the explanation, Mr. Witness. And for approximately how long have you been doing this? Take a few seconds before answering, Mr. Witness. Answer. Ever since the Secretary General, Minister Amadou Soumaoro, appointed me in his cabinet.
Est-ce que ça fait...
Question, is it more than 1 year or less that is since that appointment? Answer, I cannot tell you precisely, but it is not more than a year. Question, do you also have a movement? Yes.
Brièvement encore, quel est ce mouvement et quels sont...
Question, and briefly, what is the movement and its objectives? Answer. It is called Horizon 2020, and the objective is to reconcile Ivorians and to bring the young people together and speak with each other. They have to look to the future to ensure that what happened in our country should never happen again. It is a movement of peace, love, and reconciliation. Question. And Mr. Witness, when you answered the Chamber's questions at the beginning, you said that in 2010 2011, you worked for Mr. Franck Guei. Is that correct? Answer, yes.
Alors, pourriez-vous nous dire
Question. Can you tell us briefly what your position was in the cabinet of Mr. Franck Guei at that time? Answer. Dr. Franck Guei was the elder son of the late General Guei, and before being my boss, he was a brother and a friend ever since we were young. He was, when I was in France, he was in the United States, and when I returned finally in 26, he arrived after me, and he was appointed by His Excellency President Prt1Gbagbo as special advisor responsible for rural health. Dr. Franck Guei called me to his cabinet because his duties involved traveling to the entire Côte d'Ivoire, but specifically to the west, where the health infrastructures were degraded or had deteriorated. And may he rest in peace, but Dr. Franck Guei did not speak the local language of the West region, and that is Yakube. So Frank called me and he said, Yaké, I need you, I need your experience. You speak very well the local language. You are the son of a chief. I would like to have you to be an interpreter so as to convey Prt1Gbagbo's message to our parents and relatives who once, and he once developed. Frank called me and he said, Yaké, I need you, I need your experience. You speak very well the local language and in everything related to maternities and hospitals, because everything has deteriorated and is in a miserable state. Question. Very well. You said you worked in his cabinet in 2010, but for how long had you been working with him? Answer. I spent a long time with him. I can say that before my appointment, we were always together. I returned in 26, and before my appointment, we were together. And it was after all the missions that he decided to have me appointed officially in his cabinet at the Presidency of the Republic. Question. Very well. And when you were officially appointed, for how long did you stay in that position? How many months? Answer. I cannot remember precisely, but I believe it was less than 1 year. Question. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but was Mr. Franck Guei subsequently appointed Minister of Sport, December 2010? Answer, yes. After the elections, Mr. Franck Guei was appointed Minister of Sports. Question, just to be clear, did you continue working with him after he was appointed Minister of Sports by President Gbagbo? Answer, I was always by his side. He already had a cabinet. The director de cabinet was there, and he had told us to wait for his offices to be set up. And during that time, we were always in the residence with him. Unfortunately, it lasted only 2 to 3 months, I believe.
Pour que ça soit clair, Monsieur le témoin,
Question. For things to be clear, Mr. Witness, you specifically did not occupy a position with him, with Mr. Franck Guei, whilst he was Minister of Sports. Is that correct? An official position, that is, within the government. Answer, that is correct.
alors j'aimerais ça retourner.
Question. Now, Mr. Witness, I would like to hark back somewhat. From what I've understood, you were born in the Côte d'Ivoire, but if I read through your statement correctly, you left for Europe at a given moment in time for France and Switzerland. Is that correct? Answer, yes.
Vous rappelez de
Question. Can you remember from what year to what year you spent time in France and Switzerland before returning to Côte d'Ivoire? Answer. I left it for Europe in 1989. I was in Neuchâtel and in Saint-Aubin. I stayed there for a while. It was very cold and we couldn't work. We were talking about President Houphouët-Boigny. And one morning I just got up and I thought to myself, I went back to Côte d'Ivoire. And when I came back, I spent some time and then I went back to France. I went to Paris. I remained in Paris and then I went to Nantes. And I lived in Nantes for the entire duration. I had my first son there in Nantes. I had my carte de séjour, my residence permit. I lived in Nantes for a while, and then I came back to Paris. I lived in Inaudible, and I remained there for a while. And in 2006, when I lost my mother, I thought my father had remained on his own, so I decided to go back to Côte d'Ivoire for good.
Alors, Monsieur le témoin, alors
Question. Now, Mr. Witness, whilst you were in France, did you meet any minister whomsoever? Answer, yes. I had a restaurant, and via one of my young brother friends, well, I say brother because we were all from Côte d'Ivoire, through this person, Serge Lida, who went to university in Côte d'Ivoire. He was a professor in the Côte d'Ivoire. He allowed me to meet Moïse Lida Kwasi, a minister of state.
et juste avant de continuer, Monsieur Serge,
Question. So Mr. Serge Lida, did he have any link with Mr. Lida Kwasi? Answer, yes, of course. I believe that it is either his uncle or his elder brother, but they are both from the same family.
alors pourriez-vous nous dire brièvement
Could you briefly tell us what you discussed when you crossed paths with the Minister of State, Mr. Lida Kwasi Moïse? What did you talk about? Did you talk? Answer, yes, we did. When I met the Minister of State, Moïse Lida Kwasi, I took the courage to tell him that I was not happy and that it was he, or the government in place, that had killed General Prt1 Gbagbo. I told him face to face. And he looked at me for about 10 minutes with extreme Olympic calm, and he said no, that he had not killed General Prt1 Gbagbo. And I said, but you were on the TV. And there was some information received. But he said that he had nothing to do with late General Prt1 Gbagbo and his death. So we had a discussion because I had some friends, investors, who were interested in Côte d'Ivoire. Mr. Yaké Evariste received him. And he said that he would invite us to Côte d'Ivoire for us to see for ourselves that, according to what he said, neither he nor President Gbagbo nor his government killed anyone whomsoever, especially General Prt1 Gbagbo. And I said, well, let's see what the future holds. We'll hold you to that. And then he invited us.
Juste pour que ça soit un peu plus clair.
Question. For things to be a little clearer, what was the reason why he invited you, the aim, to your knowledge? Answer. Firstly, in order to receive our friends who were very interested in Côte d'Ivoire, and that pleased me because if they managed to work in Côte d'Ivoire, then it goes without saying that I would be paid dividends. And secondly, he said to me that he was inviting me because he thought I was courageous to tell him face to face truths that no one had dared tell him, and as a Minister of State at the time. So he invited me, and he said that President Laurent Gbagbo had a program, had a new dynamic, and he wanted me to come because I was a courageous person, and he wanted me to come and help President Laurent Gbagbo to be part of his program, and that it was he that was in fact the father of the multi-party situation, that he had a dream for Côte d'Ivoire.
Accepté?
Question, and you accepted? Answer, yes, I accepted. As I say, when I heard or listened to what the Laurent Gbagbo's program was all about, notably that he had instituted a multi-party situation, I knew, having lived in France, that democracy was based on a system of a number of parties, so that the Côte d'Ivoire had made a qualitative step forward, especially for the West. And he said, give me the power and I'll give it back to you.
Alors vous avez dit que c'est en 2000.
Question. So you say that in 2006 you went back definitively to Côte d'Ivoire. Before 2006, did you or were you involved in any political activities elsewhere?
En 2006.
Answer. Before 2006 in France, no.
Et brièvement, en ce qui concerne vos études,
Question, and briefly, with regard to your studies in Côte d'Ivoire, what did you study? Answer. I went to Collège William Ponty, the local school, where I studied accountancy, and then I went to France in 1989.
et si je comprends bien, vous n'avez pas fait d'autres études
Question, if I understand you correctly, you did not do any further studies in Europe. Answer, no. In Europe, not at all. I had registered at the Benedictine school in Neuchâtel, but I didn't do any further studies. Rather, I opted to go to France in order to be able to work and to be, legit. Because in living in Europe, you need to have your papers, as they say. Question. So, you went back to Côte d'Ivoire in 2006. Did you find somewhere to live? Or did somebody help you find accommodation? Answer. Well, as I said to you, Minister Lida invited me. He helped me. He put me up in a hotel. And then, after the funeral of my mother, I took an apartment. I lived in Yopougon because my mother had her house, but I didn't want to stay there. I am the eldest of my family. I didn't want to stay there. I took an apartment for myself in which I lived.
Alors, vous habitiez à
Question. So you were living in Yopougon. In which neighborhood specifically? Answer. Well, I would call it, some others call it millionnaire, but I call it the Cité des Quatre Villas. It's in Loco Duro. It's in Adokobe. But in Yopougon, well, you feel like you're more in Yopougon from an administrative point of view. It was the Cité des Quatre Villas. That's where I lived.
Est-ce que c'est dans ce quartier
Question. Was it in that neighborhood that you lived during the post-election crisis as well? Answer, yes. Yes. Question. Did you not live elsewhere? Answer, no.
Alors, vous avez dit à la Chambre
Question. So you told the chamber that you hail from Man, that is to say, from the administrative centre of the Tonk-Pi region, as you underscored at the beginning of your testimony. Did you take part in any way in the creation of movements in that region?
Lorsque je suis arrivé,
Answer. When I arrived, when I was living where I told you, the young people from my region, students, younger brothers who were there, set up what we call the Jeunesse Unie pour le développement des montagnes de Geneppe. And they came and asked me to be the president of it. It was a movement of which I was the president. It was set up firstly by young people, and they were looking for a leader, and I accepted to be the president, the JUDEP, Jeunesse Unie pour le développement des montagnes. Question. So we can understand by virtue of the acronym itself what the objective was. But can you tell me how it worked? Answer. The JUDEM was a movement that aimed to organize young people, women, and to get our relatives out of their lethargic state. We were supposed to tell them that the more unified we are as young people, as women, as cultivators, then the more in a position we would be to receive help from the state. Alone, we would not be in a position to benefit from what we were expecting from the state. There we are.
Alors, simplement pour qu'on soit clair.
Question. Now, quite simply, so that we are clear, were you, or did you work in the capacity of president of that movement? Answer, yes, I was the president of that movement.
À votre connaissance, pourquoi est-ce que...
Question, to your knowledge, why did those young people approach you to be the president? Answer, because, firstly, as I said, I speak our dialect, our mother tongue very well. I am somebody who, thanks to my father, knows our village and our customs, and I am a descendant of the royal family governing the 70 or 68 villages of our prefecture. And I had just come from France. I had just arrived from Europe, so I was the ideal person in their eyes who had another vision with what I had seen in Europe, and I could bring them that little something extra.
Êtes-vous en mesure de nous dire en...
Question. Are you in a position to tell us when this occurred? You arrived in 2006, but can you tell us when you were chosen as president of the JUDEM? Answer. I told you that, and I even told others that I have problems with dates. But, well, I think it was nearly a year after my arrival that they came.
Alors, simplement, si on...
Question. So, simply, if we are able to put a date on it, in time, does the deployment of the first audience foraine, the 13th of July 2006, as the date when those first mobile courts were set up, the audience foraine, does that ring a bell? Answer, yes, those mobile courts, the audience foraine, does ring a bell, because I remember that during those mobile courts, I was nearly killed in Man.
Vous êtes arrivé...
Question. So, to situate in time, correct me if I'm wrong, you arrived in 2006 before the first mobile courts were set up. Answer, yes. I arrived in 2006. My mother died on the 26th or 27th of May, before Mother's Day. I arrived after that.
Alors, si je comprends bien, c'est
Question. So if I understand correctly, it's approximately a year afterwards that you became the president of the JUDEM. Is that correct? Answer yes.
après le
Question. So after the JUDEM, did you take part or were you implicated or involved in the creation of any other movement?
Oui.
Answer yes.
lequel?
Question. Which one? Answer. As the JUDEM was out on the ground, organizing the youth in a very good fashion, I was requested, thanks to my younger brother Guillaume Bateau, who's a journalist of merit, to head up a movement by the name of Coma JMG. COMA JMG.
Êtes-vous en mesure de nous dire
Question. Are you in a position to tell us how much later or how much longer after the JUDEM you were requested to take part in this comage? Answer. I can't tell you specifically. I might be mistaken, but as far as the JUDEM is concerned, we were active out on the ground. I can't tell you, but maybe less than a year?
pourriez-vous nous dire le
Question. Could you explain to us what this Coma JMG, what those letters refer to? Answer. It is the Coalition des mouvements et associations des jeunes de montagne pour Gbagbo, the coalition of movements and associations of youth from the mountains for Gbagbo.
et brièvement encore quel était
Question. And briefly once again, what was the objective behind this movement? Answer. As its name indicates, it was a coalition. There was the FPI Youth, headed up by Tongpe, my younger brother Guillaume Bateau, and then there was the JUDEM, and there were all of those who could recognize themselves in this Laurent Gbagbo program. And that's why they wanted to bring the forces together, because we all have one and the same objective, being President Gbagbo, whom we all have in common. And so rather than have problems of leadership and overlapping, on the impetus of Guillaume Bateau, there was Alain Gao de Deban, there was the young Bio Delphin from Dananir as well, all of those young leaders. And there was a message from the interpreter. The witness is rattling off names. Could he please slow down and spell them? Thank you.
Yes, please slow down and spell the names so that we understand them better and we can write them down correctly. Thank you.
Il y avait, je dis sous l'impulsion
under the impetus of Guillaume Bateau, as I was saying.
Alors, c'est bien Guillaume.
Question. So it's G-B-A-T-O, Guillaume, is that correct?
Vous avez également mentionné.
You also mentioned Mr. Alain Gaudet, G-A-O-U-D-E, number 23 on the list. Question. He was a federalist of the GPE FPI at the time. Question. So we're going to go. So he was a federal of the Jeunesse du Front Populaire Ivoirien. Is that correct? Answer yes. The FPI. And what is the other name that you also mentioned as an individual who was part of that movement? Answer. There was the Guénon Honoré from the FPI. Question. And this is on our list that we transmitted. Connor, K-O-N-O-R-H-O-N-O-R-E. Message from the interpreter. If council was to refer to the number on the list, it would help.
To the number of the list, this would help also the interpreters. Thank you.
Alors, c'est le numéro 40.
Question. So it's number 40 on the list. And I can see that the name is rather K-E-U-N-A-N. Is that correct? Answer. Yes.
Dit que c'est une
Question. And you said that this was a person who was the federal of the FPE from Danane. He is the Zaonia. Zouan Unia. Question. Could you please spell this for us? Answer. Z-O-U-A-N dash H-O-U-N-I-E-N.
Alors, simplement pour que ça...
Questioned. Now, Zouan Unya is in fact a department of the region of Tongpi, if I understand you correctly. Answer. Yes. Question. And it would seem to me, Mr. Witness, that you also made mention of another name. Answer. Biu. Delphin. Question. Could you please, for the register, the record, spell the family name? B-I-E-U Delphin.
Et c'est Monsieur Bieu.
Question. And this Mr. Bieu Delphin, which party did he represent? Answer. He was from, we say, the movement of Mr. Jean-Yves Dubeau-Pieux, the SOAF.
Je ne sais pas si c'est le nom que vous avez.
Question. I don't know whether this is the name you mentioned. Is that the name SOAF? S-O-A-F. Answer. Yes. Question. Is that the Solidarité Africaine? And did you mention Jean-Yves Dubeau-Pieux? Answer. He was the president of the movement and Delphin was his representative in Denare.
Alors, simplement pour qu'on soit clair sur la...
Question. For us to be clear in this regard, those individuals who were part of the movement, are these people who were in that region of Tongpi? Answer: all of those individuals, as myself, hail from Tongpi, but they all lived in Bian, as I did, and they would go there on each occasion.
Et vous vous occupiez.
Question. And what was your position in that movement? Answer: they came and saw me after being referred by my young brother, Gbagbo. He said we should bring the forces together to support President Laurent Gbagbo. It was after that consensus that Gbagbo told me, dear older brother, we chose you to become the president of the Comage GMG, and because of your position with Dr. Franck Guei, you were able to visit all the areas of Tongpi. You were able to speak with everybody. We know that you are very good. You have a great mastery of our language. You are our elder, and we would want you to be that person that would prevent the battle or fight between the generations. So you should be at the head of the Comage MG. Question: and briefly, as the president, what were your daily duties? Answer: on a daily basis, well, that is a bit too much, but we had a program. There were students and so on. Everybody had their duties. Our plans were to meet in the field and decide how to organize ourselves so that our candidate, President Laurent Gbagbo, should be able to win. And we had to convey the message of development of President Laurent Gbagbo. We would call each other, and we met generally during the weekends when we could, if I was not on mission with Dr. Franck and so on. But generally speaking, from Abidjan, we will meet in Tongpi so as to be more pragmatic in relation to our people.
Et la sortie.
Question: and where was the official launching of your movement? Answer: I cannot tell you the precise date, but we did it in Yopougon, at the Baron in Yopougon. And our guest of honor was Mr. Damana Pikas, that is through Mr. Gbagbo.
Je comprends que vous n'êtes pas en mesure.
Question: I understand that you cannot give us a precise date, but how long after the creation or after you were appointed president that you made that launch? Answer: I repeat, I have problems with dates, but when I accepted, everything was organized by my young brother Gbagbo. it was quite quick. It didn't take too much time, and he called on Damana Pikas. I did not know him. I met him for the first time. He came to us. We were in Baron in Yopougon, and so we did the official launching. It did not take too long in any case. Question, as far as you can remember, did this take place in 2008? Answer, I do not remember. I know that it was at the Baron. I know the place not far away from the mairie of Yopougon. I know that Damana Pikas was there. Question, and if I understand you well, the Baron is a bar. Is that correct? Answer, the Baron in Yopougon is a location where you have several halls that you can rent, either for weddings, for events, for press conferences. This is a premises, a location that you can use, you can rent for all sorts of activities. You have to go and request from the manager, and they would tell you such and such a hall is occupied and will be free on a different day. That is how it happens. Question, you spoke about Mr. Damana Pikas, who sort of sponsored or was the godfather. What does that mean precisely? Answer, this is simply political, a political thing, because he was from the party of Mr. Laurent Gbagbo, and most of those young people were members of the youth wing of the FPI, and they wanted to invite him to make the occasion even more solemn for the movement, even more credible, because Mr. Damana Pikas was just not anybody in the hinterland. He was someone of note. So they told me Mr. Damana Pikas would be there. And I said, very well, he should come and give us a message. He should come and support us, to encourage us. And that is what happened. Question. You said Mr. Damana Pikas was just not anyone. What do you mean by that? Answer. Guillaume Bateau told me that he was one of the respected collaborators of President Prt1Gbagbo. He was also one of the young people who was also meet President Laurent Gbagbo. He was more in the office of the party of Laurent Gbagbo. He was a respected young person, and he was a close collaborator of President Prt1Gbagbo.
Alors, Monsieur le témoin, après...
Question, Mr. Witness. After having been appointed president of that movement, did you come into contact with other people who also encouraged the electoral campaign of Mr. Laurent Gbagbo? Answer. First of all, my boss, Dr. Franck Guei, was aware of that. And following our activities, I no longer remember the date, but one morning I received a phone call from Mr. Charles Gudet. And he very politely asked me whether I could meet with him. I informed my boss, Dr. Franck Guei, and he told me, go and listen to what he has to say, and then you will report back to me.
Retourne à cette...
Question. Now, going back to this conversation, this call from Charles Gudet, can you give us more details? I understand that he asked you whether he could meet with you. Answer, yes. He gave me an appointment in his office, not far away from the Adjan Mosque in Angre. He gave me the time. And when I informed Dr. Franck, then I went there on that day. Question. During the phone call, did Mr. Gudet tell you why he wanted to meet with you? Answer. No. He said hello and very warmly and politely. I was already very surprised. He said it is General Charles Gudet. I was surprised and I said yes. And he said, I would like to meet with you in my office. And he set the time.
Juste avant de continuer, monsieur.
Question. Let us situate this event in time. Do you remember when precisely you received that phone call? Answer, I do not remember precisely. Question. Just to refresh your memory, Mr. Witness, and I'm referring to transcript 0061205, and it is tab 2 actually, and it is page 0528. Mr. Witness, I am simply referring to the transcript of your interview with the investigators of the Office of the Prosecutor, and lines 567 to 570. The question was, I'm being told to slow down.
Alors, l'appel de...
Line 567, and I will quote you. Gudet's call was end 2006, early 2007, And your answer, 2006, 2007, 2008. Okay, okay. And then your answer, line 570. I can say around 2008, early 2009. Does that refresh your memory? Answer. Listen, I could be mistaken, but what I'm saying is that I received the call from Mr. Charles Guei, and he gave me an appointment in his office in Angre. I can be mistaken about the dates, and I told the investigators that I'm sorry, but I have that problem, even though I can confirm that I received the phone call.
Alors, l'endroit...
Question. Now, the venue of the appointment, where did you go to meet with Mr. Charles Guei? Answer. Let me repeat. In his offices in Angre, not far away from the Ajian Mosque. Not far away from the Ajian Mosque in Angre. Question. Can you help us in which neighborhood precisely? Answer. It is part of Cocody. It is on the road from Sokose to Angre. It is part of Cocody commune. There is the mosque there, and his offices are on the other side of the road, next to a Shell petrol station. Question. And you say his offices. Offices for what? Which offices? Answer. I saw his offices. I cannot tell you more than that. I can simply tell you that there were people there, friends. I saw things related to communication. If I'm not mistaken, I saw images.
Vous dites des choses qui ont rapport.
Question, you said things related to communication. Can you be more specific? Do you remember something in particular? Answer. There were portraits of artists, images of artists. Question, is that some sort of company? Answer, I am not able to say. Question, when you arrived at that location, who was present? Answer, there were a lot of people there, a lot of young people. There was a young lady who welcomed me and who had me sit and wait at a location below.
Il y avait combien de personnes qui étaient?
Question, how many people were there when you arrived approximately?
I can leave that be, Your Honor, but
Thank you.
Est-ce que vous êtes en mesure de nous dire si vous avez reconnu des gens?
Question, can you tell us whether you recognize any of the people who were present there? Answer, yes. Question, so tell us who was present? Answer, I recognize a young lady, Miss Guei Bernadette, and I recognize some young people. Question, just 1 minute. You mentioned Miss Guei Bernadette, and that is number 28 on the list. Answer, yes. Question, and who is that lady? Answer, she introduced herself as the protocol officer of the president, the general, the president.
Vous avez dit que vous avez
Question. You said that you also recognized some young people. Who? Answer. I recognize Mr. Guei Jean-Claude, for example. Question. Yes, that is number 46 on our list. And who was Guei Jean-Claude? Answer. I believe the lady said it was he was her boss. I believe he was a fixer, a man who was able to do all sorts of things.
Alors, ce monsieur Jean-Claude.
Question. Did Mr. Jean-Claude Guei belong to any movement? Answer. They were the henchmen of Charles Blé Goudet. I don't know whether he belonged to a movement, but he was with Charles Blé Goudet. Question. What was Mr. Charles Blé Goudet's movement? Answer. It was COGEP. Question. Did Mr. Jean-Claude Guei have a particular duty or position within the COGEP? Answer. I am not a member of COGEP, but I believe so. Question. Based on what you know, what was that position? Answer. The lady said that he was her boss. She was the protocol officer, but I really do not know precisely what he was, but he was her boss.
À votre souvenir, est-ce qu'il y avait un secrétaire national?
Answer. Or rather, question. As far as you can remember, was there a deputy secretary in charge of organization in COGEP at the time? Answer, yes. I think it was Mr. Guei. Question, did you recognize anyone else on that day? Answer. If I remember correctly, I believe there was the young Gogon, Guillaume. Question, it is number 27 on our list. And what was the position of Mr. Gogon? Answer, based on what he told me, Mr. Gogon was the representative of COGEP in Danane. Question. Did you recognize any other young people there? Answer. I no longer remember, but there were young people there.
Alors, qu'est-ce qui est arrivé durant
Question. Now, what happened when you arrived there and you met with those people? Answer. I waited. Charles arrived. I was taken to his office. He was there. And I went in. Question. Please proceed. Answer. We greeted each other. And he told me that he had heard some very good things about me and that he would want us to work for President Laurent Gbagbo, to help President Laurent Gbagbo on the ground, in the field. And I told him that I was with Franck Guei. There were no problems at that level, but that in our area, in the West, it was a bit difficult because the towns and villages were far away from each other. You could walk 12 kilometers, 25 kilometers, and it was not easy. And I said, I agree to do the work, but he should be able to help us facilitate our ability to go to the most remote villages to convey President Laurent Gbagbo's message.
When was this? Is it correct, 2006? This first meeting with Charles Blé.
Non, c'était pas de...
Witness, no, Your Honor, it was not 2006. It was around 2008, but not 2006.
Your Honors, I'd ask that we adjourn at this point. I'm going to have another series of questions when I do come back.
Okay, so let's adjourn the meeting, and just to remind you that the next session is only 1 hour because I have a commitment. So we would close at 12:30 instead of 1. And then we go to 3 o'clock in the afternoon and we have an ordinary session. Okay. Thank you very much. The hearing is adjourned.
All rise.